What if I was to tell you that there's an alternate timeline out there, where Mario had yet become Super, and Donkey Kong hadn't found his own country? Instead, what if Nintendo had stayed the course from their first game and asked, how can we improve on the original Donkey Kong? Would you believe me if I told you that this what-if scenario exists, and that it's actually pretty good? In 1994, a new DK moved to Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo. However, the original was getting a new lease of life on an unexpected platform, smaller than the CRTs of the arcades or the homes. The Nintendo Game Boy. Donkey Kong 94, which for the purposes of this video we'll call it that to avoid confusion, is not just a remake of the original arcade game, but it's also something of a fully fledged reimagining and expansion that goes beyond what you'd expect not just of Donkey Kong, but even a Super Mario game. Incorporating some of the best elements of older Mario games and a few new tricks, Nintendo put together something that is wholly unique and a perfect follow-on from the original Donkey Kong. In fact, it might be one of the greatest remakes ever made, demonstrating what the developers had learned in over a decade since the release of the arcade original. I'm James, and today I'm evaluating a game overdue for reappraisal, and the following games you had no idea were sequels. So, let's begin at the beginning. Donkey Kong 94 is a soft reboot of, well, Donkey Kong 81, a landmark title for Nintendo. It was the game that introduced the world to their platforming plumber, and was the first game directed by Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda. In hindsight, there's plenty about Donkey Kong that would be carried over into Super Mario Bros. As Mario, you rescue your female love interest from the grip of a gargantuan beast. To do so, you must solve an obstacle course under par, making tricky jumps to avoid traps and pitfalls. Freed from the limitations of the arcade, Donkey Kong transforms into a fully fledged adventure as Super Mario Bros. Spanning beyond a single screen and introducing new environments beyond the construction site, it became the seed of the side-scrolling platform game we all know today. Donkey Kong 94 starts at this same evolutionary divergence point, and then goes in a completely different direction. You see, Donkey Kong 94 begins with the first 4 original levels of the arcade game, slightly reworked for the limitations of the Game Boy screen space. The gameplay remains almost untouched from the original. But then, it pulls off a surprise trick when the final level of Donkey Kong becomes the prologue for the rest of Donkey Kong 94. Donkey Kong 81 was as much a puzzle game as a platformer. That single screen limitation meant that you could always see the position of moving platforms and enemies at all times. Less of a game of reflexes and instead one of coordination. And what made that element so effective was the fact that no matter what level you were on, you always saw your goal and your antagonist. Mario may have been the most famous character to come out of Donkey Kong, but it was named after the larger-than-life character that you could always see over a player's shoulder. Like Mickey Mouse and Peg-Leg Pete, or Popeye and Bluto, Mario and Donkey Kong had an inbuilt competitive relationship that not even Bowser had yet to develop. The put upon every man, and the stubborn beast. Although he is a static obstacle, Donkey Kong is given enough personality through his animations that he could come across as a thinking competitor, reacting to your actions. So the question was, if this fight was to continue past these 4 levels, what would these two do differently to up the stakes? This is the question that Donkey Kong 94 answers by having Donkey Kong change the rules of his own game. And this is where the puzzle element comes to the foreground. The first wrinkle is the key unlock door. Donkey Kong uses one to slow down your pursuit of him and Pauline. Now, it's not enough to just scale to the top of a level. You also need to carry a large object that limits your moveset. Ergo, the challenge isn't just getting Mario up there, but also your means to get out of there. The key and locked door concept wasn't technically new to the palette. Super Mario Bros. 2 had its own keys and locked doors that threw a wrench in navigating its otherwise usual levels. It also introduced Mario's ability to pick up objects as a means of defense. But that game too is something of a divergence point from the main Mario canon, considering its origins as a completely different game. Donkey Kong 94 saw it as a worthy mechanic to include, and so it is given another starring role here. These wrinkles continue as levels go on, all which nicely fit the theme of the original Donkey Kong. This is a world of moving conveyors and construction equipment, so you might have levels that introduced hydraulic springs or electrical poles to navigate, or lever switches that manipulate platforms and conveyors, all of which are often thrown into the mix by Donkey Kong himself. The cool thing is, these new techniques or gimmicks are often introduced in short, wordless tutorials that emulate the style of classic silent cartoons. It's a technique that feels taken right out of its arcade origins, popularised by games like Pac-Man. Donkey Kong ups the ante, Mario rises to the challenge, and their manic pursuit continues. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the most interesting of the inclusions: the ladder and bridge power-up. For the first time in the Mario series, the power to create platforms was put in the hands of the player. When you pick them up, time is paused as you get to place these extending blocks. Like everything in Donkey Kong, placement is crucial not just for solving the puzzles, but for doing it as efficiently as possible. Also, like the rest of Donkey Kong, there is a strict time limit in place to use these new structures before they disappear. It's fortunate that these wrinkles never overegg the formula of the original Donkey Kong. Many of the changes are much more subtle and usually out of the player's control. Things like wind conditions that bat Mario back and forth, or friendly creatures that can be used as makeshift platforms to add spice to a level without complicating what Mario can do. There is a variety in Donkey Kong 94 that is typical of Nintendo's best games, and it keeps things from getting too stale without also overwhelming the player. But it's not just the levels of Donkey Kong that have been made deeper. Here, Mario is given abilities that make him even more versatile than his superior counterpart. Picking up objects and climbing ladders return from previous games, but here he can also do handstands, high jumps, trapeze spins, and backflips. Keep in mind, this game came out 2 years before Super Mario 64, meaning that some of Mario's most expressive jumps from that game were first seen in Donkey Kong 94. And the thing is, using these moves makes solving the original Donkey Kong levels a breeze, but they'll become absolutely crucial in later levels. Donkey Kong himself is also a far more imposing antagonist than the original. Throwing barrels is still his main form of defense against Mario's advances, but his great weight also allows him to rain debris on Mario, or sick deadly creatures on him. As these little cutscenes dictate, he is often the one who brings new weapons into their futile fight, the locked doors and keys, switches, and more. Beyond the construction site, Donkey Kong 94 expands the world of the original by moving antics to a city, the forest, jungle, even a boat and airship. They all have their own unique obstacles to overcome, fitting of their environmental conditions. Despite a trip to the jungle, Donkey Kong 94 never steps foot into the Mushroom Kingdom nor Donkey Kong Country during its globe-trotting trip. In fact, outside of an endgame tease, there is no direct connection to these games. These are events outside of the regular Mario timeline, making the title feel again like a game from another world. Even if this realised city around the Donkey Kong construction site lightly inspired New Donk City in Super Mario Odyssey. Importantly, they book the stark, empty backgrounds of the original Donkey Kong levels, conveying a lot of detail in restricted palettes. Let's talk about visuals. Donkey Kong and Mario are far better realised here than they were in the arcade game, in spite of the Game Boy's harsher limitations. Having learnt the best techniques from over a decade of iterating his design, this Super Mario is defined by thick outlines and expressive animations. The same goes too for Donkey Kong, who's far better realised here than he was in the arcades. Even extra details like a curl of hair and a tie pop on his design, despite only being a few pixels tall. I should add, this Donkey Kong redesign predates the Country design, and was designed by Miyamoto himself. Understandably, not everyone can appreciate its look presented on the original Game Boy screen. Fortunately, Donkey Kong 94 has quite the magic trick going for it. You see, Nintendo were already experimenting with video games you could play on both the big and small screen decades before the Nintendo Switch. In 1994, their flagship title for this early technology was, well, Donkey Kong. Because when you place it in a Super Game Boy cartridge for the Super Nintendo, it transforms into a fully fledged arcade game, with extra colours and sound effects to boot. It's an early video game equivalent of the Wizard of Oz's Technicolor moment. And of course, when you want to play more Donkey Kong away from home, you can take it out of the cartridge and pick up where you left off with the Game Boy. Sounds familiar, right? It's amazing how the game manages to pack so many details into levels that, very often, respect the one screen restriction of the original arcade game. It shows what 13 years of experience look like when you compare a level from the original to this game, running on lower powered hardware and a far smaller display. You never feel as if you're getting a lesser game despite its portable release, making it a trailblazer in the years before mobile games and, as stated, the Nintendo Switch. Donkey Kong 94 is perhaps the finest remake Nintendo has ever produced. It could have been very easy for the developers to push it more towards either the Super Mario games or Donkey Kong Country series, and yet it excels because it develops the original in ways that respect its restrictions and intent. And like all great remakes, it will get you to appreciate the original in a whole new way, which is quite a feat for the game that arguably created the Nintendo we recognise today. And it will make you wonder, what exactly could have happened if Nintendo had decided to not develop its platforming to create Super Mario Bros., but instead honed its puzzle design into a more advanced era? Mario vs. Donkey Kong was a Game Boy Advance game released in 2004. Believe it or not, it is a fully fledged sequel to Donkey Kong 94. In fact, it began as a remake of DK94 for the GBA. And if you've played it before, but didn't know about the Game Boy original, this video has likely put a lot of its design in context. The first thing you'll notice, though, are the visuals. Unlike the Game Boy game, which focused on hand-drawn sprites, Mario vs. Donkey Kong instead employs rotoscope 3D that, ironically, pays homage to Donkey Kong Country. The design of the characters too are very much rooted in the looks that have since become their permanent designs. Audio too has also been given an upgrade, incorporating voice effects that are too pulled straight out of the current era of Mario and Donkey Kong. This alignment to stock Mario probably has you thinking that it will be more in step with the regular Mario games, but don't be put off by appearances just yet. The gameplay of Donkey Kong 94 is still here. Same moves, but with a few more tricks up its sleeve. The plot is also a little bit more sophisticated this time round. Rather than Donkey Kong stealing a damsel in distress as a means of motivation, instead he performs intellectual property theft. Turns out, even in 2004, Nintendo was warning us what happens when you mess with their IP. Super Mario's construction skills have led him to becoming a toy maker, with a number of clockwork pastiches of himself up for sale. That is until they're stolen by a jealous Donkey Kong. These mini Marios are the biggest addition to the format. At the end of each bracket of levels, Mario vs. Donkey Kong switches gears and, well, becomes lemmings. You still solve these puzzles as Mario, but the aim is to get all these automated drones to the goal. While not an entirely original idea, it does fit in the framework of Donkey Kong 94's gameplay. And, well, they are fun puzzles to solve. Fitting of the Game Boy Advance's wider aspect ratio, this game now spans screens across all levels, so the challenge of keeping up with the constantly moving Mini Marios adds a bit more spice to the usual button pushing and platform creation. Mario vs Donkey Kong was the start of the franchise's drift from the Donkey Kong 94 formula, and aligning more to the Nintendo of our reality. It can be seen in the inclusion of Shy Guys and Toads into the gameplay and plot respectively. It certainly makes it feel less unique compared to the Game Boy game, which had completely unique enemy types across stages. It's the sentiment I imagine fans of Paper Mario have with newer titles in the series, which too has strayed away from that series' unique identity into something more recognisably Super Mario. The thing is, it's difficult to really say much more about Mario vs Donkey Kong that doesn't retread what I've already said about Donkey Kong 94. But having more Donkey Kong is appreciated, even if it's in a game that's far more aligned to the looks and feel of contemporary Mario games. Fortunately, there have been plenty more Mario vs Donkey Kong games in the years since, although they have stripped away the gameplay of Donkey Kong 94 and focused more on the Mini Marios. It's refreshing to still have a Nintendo franchise that respects the puzzle platforming of the original. And well, none of them would have been possible if not for a piece of alternative history that came out back in 1994. Donkey Kong 94 truly feels like a product from another Nintendo. One that, instead of developing Super Mario into the Mickey Mouse of platforming games and giving Donkey Kong a CGI makeover, honed in on the interplay of Mario and Donkey Kong to create a silent comedy of elaborate traps and daring pursuits. Perhaps it was the absolute realization of what Shigeru Miyamoto wanted to achieve all the way back in 1981, but now with the clarity of vision and skill set to execute it. There's very little in the way of development interviews out there for Donkey Kong 94. It's the only Game Boy Mario title that Shigeru Miyamoto produced, following the original being his directorial debut. Why did the team at Nintendo decide not just to remake Donkey Kong this way, at this time, but also to remove it from the main canon of the Mario series? It really does make it feel like an evolutionary offshoot of the game that started it all, even if it does incorporate many elements from later Mario games, and would inspire mechanics that would turn up in later mainline titles. As more Super Mario games are released that are so tightly on brand, these strange alternate realities like Donkey Kong 94 are only going to become more appreciated years on. If we can appreciate games like Breath of the Wild and Resident Evil 7 for aligning their design with the ancestral games that made them household names, I think it's only fair that DK94 gets that same kind of respect. It's not quite a remake, nor a sequel, nor an expansion, but it is absolutely an undiscovered gem of a video game. But it has me wondering, why isn't there more fanfare for games like Donkey Kong 94? Why do those rare games that take a forgotten core of the series and go in a new yet respectful direction often fail to catch on? Sound off in the comments if you have thoughts on this. Until next time, I've been James D, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again in the next upload.